The Galactic Military Academy floated in the void between three star systems, a massive construct of gleaming metal and energy shields that housed the finest military minds from across the known galaxy. For 300 years, it had trained officers from 47 different species, each bringing their own strengths to the cosmic alliance that kept peace among the stars. Marcus Chen had been at the academy for 6 months, and he still felt like an outsider. Humans were the newest species to join the Galactic Coalition, and their acceptance had been grudging at best. Most of the other cadets viewed Earth's inhabitants as primitive barbarians who had somehow stumbled into space travel before learning proper civilization. The morning started like any other in combat strategy class. Professor Vextar, a tall, spider-like being with multiple eyes and razor-sharp mandibles, was explaining fleet formations when the classroom door burst open. General Korath strode in, his massive frame filling the doorway. The Zalarian stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin that looked like living stone and arms that could crush a small vehicle. His uniform was covered in medals from a dozen different wars, and his reputation for brutality preceded him wherever he went. Every cadet in the room immediately stood at attention, regardless of species. Korath was known throughout the galaxy as one of the Coalition's most effective generals, but also one of its most ruthless. His methods had saved countless worlds, but the cost in lives was always steep. "Sit," Korath growled, his voice like grinding boulders. The universal translator in Marcus's ear made the words clear, but couldn't diminish the menace in the general's tone. "I'm here to observe your pathetic attempts at strategy." Professor Vextar chittered nervously. "Of course, General. We were just discussing the Battle of Kepler-7. Korath's 4 eyes focused on the holographic display showing ship formations. Kepler-7, a waste of good ships and better soldiers. The human admiral who led that battle was an incompetent fool." Marcus felt his jaw clench. Admiral Sarah Martinez had been his great-aunt, one of humanity's first space fleet commanders. She had saved 2 billion civilians during the Kepler-7 evacuation, sacrificing her own ship and crew to hold the line against overwhelming enemy forces. To hear her called a fool by this alien bully made his blood boil. "The Admiral saved countless lives," Marcus said before he could stop himself. The classroom fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and optical organ turned toward him. Korath's massive head swiveled in his direction, and Marcus could see something dangerous glittering in those alien eyes. "Did I ask for your opinion, human?" Korath's voice had dropped to barely above a whisper, which somehow made it more terrifying than if he had shouted. Marcus stood slowly. He was tall for a human at 6 feet 2 inches, but Korath towered over him. "No, sir, but Admiral Martinez deserves respect. She died protecting innocent people." Several of his classmates made worried sounds. A crystalline cadet's body actually dimmed with fear, while a reptilian Saurok hissed softly in distress. Everyone knew that contradicting General Korath was career suicide at best. Korath stepped closer, his massive frame casting a shadow over Marcus's desk. "Respect? Your species has been in space for less than 50 years. You know nothing of war, nothing of sacrifice, nothing of what it takes to maintain order in this galaxy." "Maybe we're new to space," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through his veins. "But we're not new to fighting for what's right." The general's laugh was like grinding metal. "Fighting? You soft, weak humans wouldn't last 5 minutes in a real war. Your bodies are fragile, your minds are simple, and your hearts are too weak for the hard choices that command requires." Marcus felt something hot and angry rising in his chest. Around him, his classmates seemed to shrink back, but he found himself stepping forward instead. "We may be new here, General, but we didn't climb out of caves and into starships by being weak." Korath's eyes narrowed to slits. "Caves? You dare imply that my people are primitive?" "I wasn't talking about your people. Marcus said quietly. I was talking about mine. The silence in the room was deafening. Professor Vextar looked like he wanted to crawl into his shell, and several cadets had actually backed toward the exits. But Marcus held his ground, staring up at the alien general who had spent decades crushing rebellions and conquering worlds. You humans think you're special, Korath snarled. You think your little wars on your little planet make you warriors. But you've never faced real enemies. You've never made the hard choices. You've never sacrificed everything for victory. Haven't we? Marcus asked. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and nuclear weapons. We've built civilizations, watched them fall, and built them again. And somehow, despite all of that, we still believe in protecting the innocent. Korath's face twisted with contempt. Pretty speeches. But when the moment comes, when you have to choose between saving yourself and saving others, you'll run like the coward your species truly is. The insult hung in the air like poison gas. Marcus could feel his heart pounding, could feel the eyes of every cadet in the room on him. This was the moment where he should back down, where he should apologize, and hope that Korath's attention moved elsewhere. That's what a smart cadet would do. Instead, Marcus took another step forward. You're wrong about us, General, and you're wrong about Admiral Martinez. The change in Korath's expression was instant and terrifying. The alien general's face went from contempt to pure rage in a heartbeat. His massive hand shot out faster than Marcus could react, catching him across the face with a backhand that sent the human cadet stumbling sideways. The blow was calculated to humiliate rather than seriously injure. But it still rang Marcus's bell. Stars exploded across his vision, and he tasted blood where his teeth cut the inside of his cheek. Around the room, there were gasps and cries of shock from his fellow cadets. Marcus straightened slowly, wiping blood from the corner of his mouth. His face was already beginning to swell where Korath's massive hand had connected, but his eyes were blazing with defiant fire. Feel better, General? Marcus asked quietly. Korath smiled coldly. Much. Perhaps that will teach you the proper respect for your betters, human. The alien general began to turn away, clearly considering the matter settled. He had put the upstart human in his place with a casual display of superior strength, just as he had done countless times before with other species who forgot their station. But Marcus wasn't done. My great-aunt saved 2 billion people, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent classroom. She died doing it, and you call her a fool. So here's what I think about your superior strength and my species' supposed weakness. Before anyone could react, before even Korath could turn around fully, Marcus moved. His right hand shot out in a lightning-fast strike, not at the general's body or head, but at the hand that had just struck him. His fingers found the pressure point just below Korath's wrist with surgical precision. For a human, it would have been a painful but temporary nerve strike. For a Zalarian, with their different bone density and joint structure, it was something else entirely. The sound that filled the classroom was like a tree branch snapping in a storm. Korath's roar of pain and shock echoed off the walls as his wrist bent at an impossible angle, the bones inside grinding together in ways that nature had never intended. 4 seconds. That's all it had taken from the moment Marcus spoke to the moment General Korath was on his knees, cradling his broken wrist and staring up at the human cadet in shock and disbelief. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the hum of the air recyclers seemed to have stopped. Marcus stood over the fallen general, breathing hard but standing straight, his eyes still blazing with that defiant fire. Admiral Martinez died protecting people she'd never met, Marcus said quietly. She died because she believed that every life in the galaxy was worth saving, even if it cost her own. That's not weakness, General. That's what makes us human. The medical bay was in chaos. 3 different alien doctors swarmed around General Korath's injured wrist, while Academy security officers filled the corridors outside. Word had spread through the station like wildfire. A human cadet had broken a Zalarian general's wrist with his bare hands. Marcus sat in a holding cell 2 levels below, his own injuries already treated by a robotic medical unit. The bruise on his face had turned an impressive purple-black, but he was otherwise unharmed. He stared at his hands, still hardly believing what had happened. In his 4 years of martial arts training back on Earth, he had never imagined that a simple nerve strike could have such devastating effects on an alien physiology. Commander Thale approached his cell, her blue-scaled face unreadable. The Aquarian officer was one of the few faculty members who had shown any kindness to human cadets since their arrival at the Academy. "Cadet Chen," she said, her gills fluttering with what Marcus had learned was concern. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Marcus looked up at her. "I defended my great-aunt's honor, ma'am." "You assaulted a coalition general, a decorated war hero who has saved more lives than you can count." "He called my great-aunt a fool," Marcus replied quietly. "She died saving 2 billion people, Commander. She deserved better than that." Commander Thale's fins drooped. "Your great-aunt's sacrifice was noble, Cadet, but what you've done... General Korath is calling for your immediate expulsion and criminal charges. He wants you sent back to Earth in disgrace." "Then I guess I'm going home." "Are you giving up so easily?" Thale asked, her large eyes studying his face. "Your species just gained membership in the coalition. This incident could set human integration back decades." Marcus felt the weight of that responsibility settling on his shoulders. He had acted without thinking, driven by anger and wounded pride, but he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Before he could respond, the cell door slid open with a soft hiss. Admiral Krixta floated in, her jellyfish-like body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that Marcus's translator identified as serious concern. The Medusi Admiral was one of the highest-ranking officers in the Coalition fleet. "Commander Thale, you're dismissed," the Admiral said, her voice like whale song filtered through water. Thale saluted and left quickly. Admiral Krixta positioned herself directly in front of Marcus's bench, her translucent bell-shaped body casting shifting patterns of light across the cell walls. "Cadet Chen, I've just finished reviewing the security footage of your encounter with General Korath." "Yes, ma'am." "Tell me, what do you know about Zalarian physiology?" The question caught Marcus off guard. "Very little, Admiral. Basic stuff from xenobiology class. Zalarians evolved on a high-gravity world. Their bones are 3 times denser than yours. Their joints are reinforced with cartilaginous plates, and their muscle fibers can generate forces that would crush most organic materials." The Admiral paused, her body pulsing with what looked like amusement. "It should have been impossible for you to injure General Korath with a simple hand strike." Marcus frowned. "I just hit a pressure point, ma'am. Something I learned in martial arts class back home." "Yes, I know. I've been studying human combat techniques for the past 3 hours." Admiral Krixta's body brightened. "Your species has developed remarkably sophisticated understanding of anatomical vulnerabilities, but that's not what interests me most." "What does, ma'am?" "The fact that you identified and successfully exploited an unknown weakness in Zalarian anatomy within seconds of being attacked, without any prior knowledge of their bone structure or joint configuration." The Admiral drifted closer. "How did you know where to strike?" Marcus thought about it. I don't know. It just looked like the right spot. Like where a human would be vulnerable, but different somehow." "Instinct," the Admiral said softly. "Your species' combat instincts adapted to alien physiology in real time. Fascinating." "Admiral, I'm not some kind of fighting machine. I was just angry." "Oh, but you are a fighting machine, Cadet. All humans are. Your species evolved as pursuit predators on a death world. You're naturally equipped to hunt, track, and kill almost anything. Admiral Crixta's patterns shifted to what Marcus hoped was approval rather than fear. Most species in the coalition evolved from prey animals or environmental specialists. Only a few, like the Zalarians, evolved from apex predators. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying we're dangerous? I'm saying you're exactly what the coalition needs. Before Marcus could ask what she meant, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights bathed the cell in bloody illumination, and the Admiral's body immediately darkened to a deep purple that Marcus recognized as battle readiness. Admiral Crixta to Command Center, she spoke into her communicator. Report. The response crackled through the small speaker. Ma'am, we've got multiple enemy contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Pirates? Looks like a full raiding fleet. They're demanding surrender. Marcus watched the Admiral's expression change from concern to grim determination. How many ships? 37 vessels, Admiral. Mixed classes, but they've got us outnumbered 3-1. The Academy's defensive fleet consisted of only 12 ships, mostly aging cruisers used for training exercises. Against a full pirate armada, they wouldn't stand a chance. Time to intercept? They're not waiting for intercept, ma'am. They're heading straight for the station, weapons hot. Admiral Crixta was quiet for a moment, her body cycling through patterns too fast for Marcus to interpret. Then she turned to face him directly. Cadet Chen, how many human cadets are currently aboard this station? 47, ma'am. Why? Because in approximately 15 minutes, we're going to be boarded by pirates who have no interest in taking prisoners. Our defensive fleet will buy us some time, but not much. The Admiral's body pulsed with resolve. I'm about to offer you and your fellow humans a choice. What kind of choice? The kind that will either save this station or get you all killed. Admiral Crixta moved closer to the cell door. I'm going to release you and arm every human cadet aboard this facility. I want you to do what your species does best. Marcus stood up, his heart beginning to race. Which is? Hunt. The cell door slid open, and Marcus stepped into the corridor. Around them, the station shuddered as the first enemy ships opened fire on the outer defense grid. Admiral, with respect, we're just cadets. We've had some basic combat training, but we're not Marines. No, Admiral Crixta agreed, her body blazing with bioluminescent intensity. You're something much more dangerous than Marines. You're humans who've just been told that innocent people are about to die. As if to emphasize her point, the station's defensive screens flickered and failed under the massive bombardment. Through the corridor's observation ports, Marcus could see enemy fighters swarming toward the docking bays like angry wasps. The other species aboard this station evolved to flee from danger, the Admiral continued. Zalarians charge straight at it, which is why they make good soldiers. But humans are the only species I know that actively seek out danger when they believe there's something worth protecting behind them. Marcus thought about his great-aunt Sarah, who had flown her crippled ship straight into the heart of an enemy fleet to buy time for civilian transports to escape. He thought about the billions of humans throughout history who had stood between the innocent and the darkness, knowing they might not survive the encounter. What do you need us to do? Admiral Crixta's body erupted in patterns of fierce joy. Show them why prey animals fear the dark. The station shook again as the first enemy boarding pods slammed into the docking bay airlocks. Somewhere in the distance, Marcus could hear the sound of cutting torches and exploding bulkheads as pirates began forcing their way inside. Where do we start? Marcus asked. Armory level 7. Commander Thale is already gathering your fellow humans. The Admiral began moving toward the emergency stairwells. Cadet Chen? Yes, ma'am. When this is over, assuming we survive, you still have to answer for what you did to General Karath. Marcus nodded grimly. I understand, Admiral. Good, because I suspect he's going to want to thank you personally. As they rushed through the corridors toward the armory, Marcus could hear sounds of battle echoing through the station's hull. Laser fire, explosions, and the screams of wounded beings filled the air. The pirates had come expecting easy prey, a station full of soft cadets and aging instructors. They were about to discover that humans had a very different definition of the word prey than the rest of the galaxy. The armory on Level 7 looked like a war zone. 47 human cadets stood in formation, while Commander Thale distributed weapons with shaking hands. The other species' cadets had been evacuated to the central safe zones, but the humans had volunteered to stay and fight. Marcus recognized faces from his classes: Jessica Park from Engineering, Thomas Wright from Navigation, Maria Santos from Communications. They were young people who had come to the stars dreaming of exploration and discovery, not warfare, but now they stood ready to fight for a station full of beings who had barely accepted their presence. Listen up! Admiral Crixta's voice boomed through the armory's speakers. The pirates have breached docking bays 3, 7, and 12. They're moving toward the main reactor and the civilian shelters. Security teams are falling back on all fronts. Through the armory's windows, Marcus could see flashes of weapons fire in the corridors below. The station's alien security forces were brave, but they were trained for law enforcement, not military combat. The pirates were cutting through them like paper. Commander Thale approached Marcus with a standard Coalition pulse rifle. Cadet Chen, Admiral Crixta has requested that you coordinate the human response. Ma'am, I'm just a first-year cadet. You're the human who broke a Zalarian general's wrist, Jessica Park said from nearby. I think that qualifies you to lead us into a fight. Marcus took the rifle, feeling its unfamiliar weight in his hands. Around him, his fellow humans were checking their weapons and armor with the calm efficiency that had characterized their species for millennia. When faced with overwhelming odds, humans didn't panic. They got to work. What's the plan? Thomas Wright asked. Marcus looked around the armory, his mind racing. The pirates would expect the station's defenders to fall back to fortified positions and fight a defensive battle. They would expect orderly retreats and tactical withdrawals. They wouldn't expect hunters. We split into teams of 5, Marcus said. Jessica, take your team toward docking bay 3. Thomas, you take bay 7. Maria, bay 12. Hit them from behind while they're advancing on the security teams. What about you? Commander Thale asked. Marcus smiled grimly. I'm going hunting. The next hour was chaos. Marcus led a team of 4 other cadets through the station's maintenance tunnels, moving like ghosts through the shadows. They struck fast and hard at isolated pirate units, then vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The pirates had expected to face Aquarian security forces with their measured, tactical responses. They had prepared for crystalline defenders with their defensive mindsets. They weren't ready for humans who moved through the station's corridors like predators stalking prey. Marcus's team hit a squad of 6 pirates who were trying to cut through a security door. The aliens never saw them coming. Moving with the silent coordination that humans had used to hunt mammoths and tigers, they struck from 3 different angles simultaneously. The fight was over in seconds. How do they move so quietly? One wounded pirate gasped before losing consciousness. Marcus didn't answer. He was already planning their next strike. Through his communicator, he could hear similar successes from the other teams. Jessica's group had ambushed a full platoon near docking bay 3. Thomas's team had taken out the pirates' command post at bay 7. Maria's squad had destroyed 2 boarding pods before they could fully deploy their troops. The tide of battle was shifting, but the pirates still had superior numbers. For every enemy they eliminated, 2 more seemed to take their place. Marcus! Jessica's voice crackled through the calm. We've got problems at the reactor level. Major pirate force moving toward the main power core. If the pirates reach the reactor, They could shut down life support throughout the station. Thousands of alien cadets and instructors would suffocate in the darkness of space. All teams, converge on reactor level, Marcus ordered. We end this now. The reactor level was a maze of cooling pipes and energy conduits that provided power for the entire academy. Marcus and his combined teams of 20 humans moved through the industrial landscape like wolves hunting in a pack. Behind them, they could hear the heavy footsteps of 43 pirate raiders armed with military-grade weapons. There, Thomas whispered, pointing toward the main control room where a group of pirates were setting explosive charges. Blow the reactor controls and this whole place goes dark. Ideas? Marcus asked. The old-fashioned way, Maria replied with a fierce grin. Straight at them, fast and hard. Marcus nodded. It wasn't elegant, but sometimes the simplest plans were the most effective. On my mark. They charged. What followed was the kind of close-quarters battle that humans had evolved to fight. While the pirates tried to bring their heavy weapons to bear in the cramped confines of the reactor chamber, the human cadets moved between the machinery with fluid grace. They turned the industrial equipment into cover, used the narrow passages to split up enemy formations, and struck with the kind of coordinated ferocity that had made their species the apex predators of Earth. The battle was brutal and swift. When the smoke cleared, 43 pirates lay unconscious or dead among the reactor housing, while 20 humans stood victorious despite being outnumbered more than 2-1. Reactor secure, Marcus reported to Admiral Kriksta. Station power holding steady. Acknowledged, Cadet Chen, and well done. Over the next 2 hours, the remaining pirates either surrendered or were systematically hunted down by roving human teams. The attempted raid had turned into a complete disaster for the criminal fleet, with over half their forces captured or eliminated by what they had assumed would be easy prey. When the shooting finally stopped, Marcus found himself back in the medical bay where this had all started. General Korath sat on an examination table, his wrist immobilized in a regeneration cast, while a crystalline medic ran final scans. Cadet Chen, the Zalarian general said as Marcus approached. Sir, I owe you an apology. Marcus blinked in surprise. Sir, I called your people weak. I said you were cowards who would run when faced with real danger. Korath flexed his good hand. I was wrong. Thank you, sir. Your great-aunt, Admiral Martinez. I read her service record after our encounter. You were right to defend her memory. She died like a warrior. She died like a human. Marcus replied quietly. General Korath considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. Perhaps there's no difference. Admiral Kriksta floated into the medical bay, her body pulsing with satisfaction. Cadet Chen, I have some news for you. Yes, ma'am? The Coalition Council has been reviewing the Academy's performance during today's crisis. They're particularly impressed with the effectiveness of human combat tactics in shipboard environments. Marcus waited, sensing there was more. They've decided to establish a new program at the Academy, advanced combat training specifically designed around human capabilities and instincts. The Admiral's patterns brightened. They want you to help design the curriculum. Ma'am, I'm just a cadet. You're a human cadet who proved that your species brings something unique to the Coalition, Admiral Kriksta corrected. Something we desperately need. General Korath struggled to his feet, towering over Marcus once again. But this time there was respect in his alien eyes rather than contempt. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Cadet Chen. There are threats out there that make today's pirates look like children playing with toys. The Coalition has survived for centuries by bringing together the strengths of many species: Aquarian wisdom, crystalline resilience, Medusi intelligence, Zalarian courage. And now, Admiral Kriksta added, human tenacity. Marcus looked around the medical bay at his fellow cadets, all of them still carrying their weapons, all of them still ready to fight if called upon. They had come to the stars seeking knowledge and adventure. Instead, they had found their true purpose. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," General Korath said, extending his uninjured hand, "we learn from each other. Your species has much to teach us about warfare, but more importantly, about what's worth fighting for." Marcus shook the alien general's massive hand carefully, mindful of the cast on the other wrist. "I'm sorry about your injury, sir." Korath's laugh was like rumbling thunder, but this time it held genuine amusement rather than menace. "Don't be. It was exactly the lesson I needed to learn about underestimating humans." As they stood there in the medical bay, human, Zalarian, and Medusae, Marcus realized that something fundamental had changed. The other species no longer saw humans as primitive newcomers who had stumbled into galactic civilization. They saw them as partners, allies, and warriors. Outside the medical bay's windows, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere among them lurked the enemies that General Korath had mentioned, threats that would challenge the coalition in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But when that darkness came, it would find humanity standing ready. Not as the newest members of the coalition, but as its guardians, ready to do what humans had always done when faced with overwhelming odds and innocent lives at stake. Ready to hunt,